What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bitcoin and Markets. My name is Ansel Lindner, and today we're going to go through some of the stuff happening around Bitcoin. Of course, we have the conference. We have a bunch of my content that I put out this week we're going to cover, and some macro points about PCE. Look at the live chart of Bitcoin and ETH and all of that. We do have a thunderstorm going on here in midday thunderstorm here in Florida, so hopefully I do not lose power again. I already did that once when I was in the pregame show with Telegram. I am live streaming on YouTube, Rumble, and Telegram, as well as Twitter today. So if you are on Twitter, comments are easier to look at over there on YouTube and Rumble. You can find those links in my pinned tweet. But let's jump right into it. Let me share my screen. Bitcoinandmarkets.com. That is the homepage where you can go to find all of my content. I've been doing a lot of writing this week. So we're just going to go through some of that here on the show today. Well, before I do that, I've been watching the Bitcoin conference. I'm not there this year. I've been there for the last 3 years prior to this. But as you're deep into Bitcoin, like people that watch this podcast are deep into Bitcoin, there's not a lot of wow moments. We'll see how it is with Trump. He's going to be speaking tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern time. RFK is coming on, I believe, at 5 p.m. Eastern time today. So they'll have those two guys. Last year it was RFK and Vivek, and I saw those two speakers. So Trump will be the big wow moment this year. Other than that, it's a lot of stuff going over stuff we already know. And some of the panels that I'm listening to in the background as I'm doing my writing, I'm going to do a longer detailed breakdown of those because I didn't really pay attention to them and all of that. So anyway, let's get into my website stuff here. You guys can sign up for free over at bitcoinmarkets.com. There's also paid tiers if you'd like to support my content. I appreciate everybody that does support. So, okay, so this week I went out of town, came back. I did some writing while I was gone, and let's take a look here at the stuff that I've written since the last time I live streamed, which was last Friday, right? Okay, so Ethereum. Here's what to expect from the Ethereum ETFs launch this week. I'm bringing the receipts of what I'm talking about, what I expect for the ETF launch, and then we'll go over some live stuff, how this has turned out. Okay, so we're going to go over this. Pre-launch price movements. First, the Ethereum price has performed badly relative to Bitcoin since the announcement of its pending approval. Currently under the 50-day moving average and threatening to break support, perhaps testing the all-important 0.05 ETH to BTC price. So you can see this is where it was last, or when was this? When did I release this post? Hold on a second. On the 21st, before the launch of the ETF, it was going down. There was actually somebody on the Telegram that was saying, hey, I call all the bottoms in ETH. And I have been famous for calling one bottom in ETH when it was back at $12. And I said, $12, this thing shouldn't be 12 cents. And that wasn't the exact bottom. I think it did go down to like 7, but it was pretty close to the bottom right there. And yeah, as you guys know, I'm not an Ethereum fan, but here's here's my analysis of the Ethereum ETFs. Relative to the USD, it has also performed very badly. This is telling because its price movement has more to do with Bitcoin fundamentals than its own. So Ethereum doesn't have any fundamentals other than the affinity scam that it's running on Bitcoin. It's like Bitcoin. They say it's like Bitcoin, but it's better. Okay. It wouldn't exist if Bitcoin wasn't there because it wouldn't have anything to suck the affinity off of. Now, so this is a perfect example. Okay. The rule change gets accepted right here, and it just trends down with Bitcoin as Germany is dumping. They're not dumping ETH, they're dumping Bitcoin, but it went down with Bitcoin's fundamentals, not with the Ethereum fundamentals of the ETF coming. It's so obvious that it has no fundamentals of its own. ETH sold off harder than Bitcoin while Germany was dumping. They dumped 0 ETH, but it sold off harder than Bitcoin did. Below is how Bitcoin performed leading up to its ETF launch. It's night and day with Ethereum. And you can see here, 85% gains, depending on where exactly you measure this. I went back and measured this on a different post at the 90-day prior mark, which was right around here, and it was a 75% gain. So depending where you measure it from, a big gain prior to ETF approval. Now, if we go back to the Ethereum, where's this big gain? It has no big gain. All right. Bitcoin did. Then it did dip post the launch because grayscale outflows. But the other ETFs took up the slack, and we rallied really hard from 40,000 up to all-time highs. But Ethereum, they don't have a previous rally to go off of. They've been sideways, and it dipped just like Bitcoin. And now all the Ethereum people are coping, saying, hey, Bitcoin dipped and then rallied. We can dip and rally, right, guys? Believe me, please. Differences between Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. Bitcoin's post-launch dip was caused by 2 main factors: grayscale dumping, because it switched from a close-end trust where you couldn't withdraw, and you had a lock-in period. ETH is the same way. The ETH ETF for grayscale can go in but could not come out. So once this stopped, then they could dump. And that's what happened to Bitcoin. That's what's happening to Ethereum. Authorized participants were able to stack in the spot market early in the months leading up to approval and launch. Market makers were able to stack Bitcoin in anticipation, minimizing a supply squeeze at launch. So yes, there was a dump, but they had stacked here, getting ready for the launch, and then it dipped a little bit. They did not have that same type of stacking for Ethereum. Once again, there was no pre-launch stacking for Ethereum, at least that moved the price at all. There are different factors at play in Ethereum's launch. Ethereum is selling off prior to launch, more influenced by Bitcoin's fundamentals than its own. It's a zombie coin. Proof of stake opportunity cost. Holders of Ethereum can lock up their coins and participate in making blocks, earning them approximately 4% annualized. Proof of stake is comparable to Bitcoin's proof of work mining. Therefore, ETF owners eat the opportunity cost by owning ETH in the ETF. This will limit demand. Why would the big whales want to own this ETF if they give up on this? They won't. Okay. Bitcoin is easy to understand. It's digital gold. Ethereum has no easily articulatable value proposition. They have proven to be flaky and centrally controlled while constantly changing. Uh-oh. My browser locked up. Stand by. There we go. Is it coming back? Sorry, guys. Stand by. All right, we got it back. changing hype strategies. So they've been flaky, centrally controlled, while constantly changing hype strategies. This makes the sales pitch to boomer investors much more difficult. So Bitcoin is selling to these boomer investors buying the ETFs because it's simple. It's digital gold. Ethereum doesn't have that simplicity, it has complexity. Okay. There will be little demand to offset the dumping of the Grayscale ETH that will unlock in the conversion. Grayscale's ETH fee is staying at 2.5. That's even higher than Bitcoin's 1.5. And they can't stake. So this is horrible for the outflows of ETH. It's going to be supercharged compared to Bitcoin's outflows. Everything is set up for a massive sell-off at launch. Most Ethereum folks think the ETF will bring as much relative demand to Ethereum as to the Bitcoin ETFs, as the Bitcoin ETFs brought to Bitcoin. I think that's highly unlikely. Considering the history of weak fundamentals, the inability for the ETFs to stake, and the captive coins in Grayscale's trust being dumped, the base case for ETH price is lower. And I'm getting my computer's locking up on me. Stand by. Sorry, guys, for watching. I am having technical difficulties with my mouse. I can't, I think I need to replace the battery. So I'm looking for the battery. Stand by. Bros, how embarrassing is that? Let's get this fixed here. Holy shit. Let's see if this is working now. If you guys are joining me, if you're still here, I'm having issues with my computer. I'm trying to fix can't even end the stream. Oh shit, dude. Hold on. Okay. Oh, I'm laughing so that I won't cry. No, it's I had to get a plug-in mouse for some reason. Okay, we're back. We're back. We just read through this article here, this post. It's a Bitcoin minute, but it was a little bit longer. Um, you know, that's how it's going to go sometimes. Trying to write shorter pieces, but that's how it goes. Okay, this is another Bitcoin minute that I put out on the 23rd, and it was about Trump and Bukele. There was a lot of people kind of stoking some flames, mainly Max Kaiser. And let me check all my levels, make sure we're still going. 99 people watching. Thank you for hanging through my technical difficulties. This is a bad day. I haven't live streamed in a week. I usually do 2 or 3. We had a power outage right before when I was doing the pregame show on Telegram, and now my mouse went out halfway through the first article. But we are back here kicking. BitcoinandMarkets.com. Check it out. I'm live streaming on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, and Telegram. If you're on Twitter, go over to the YouTube and Rumble and subscribe. I'd appreciate that. Give it a thumbs up and everything. This is raw Bitcoin content, okay? I don't sell scams, never sold scams, been live streaming and podcasting for many years for Bitcoin. Have had very accurate predictions, very accurate calls. My macro thesis that involves Bitcoin is very, very unique that you won't get anywhere else. And I think it does a good job of describing what we see going on in the world today. But anyway, so let's get into this one. This one I put out on the 23rd, and there was a Trump Bukele beef because at the RNC he said something that I thought was kind of a mistake. He mistakenly lumped Bukele in with like Venezuela and stuff. Then he, in a second speech, he did something similar. Since I wrote this article, though, he has come out and said that some of the guys are very smart. Some of the guys are very smart down there. They're doing a good job. And I think he didn't say him by name, Bukele, but he was talking about him. Now, I wrote this piece because there is, it's improper to compare the U.S. and El Salvador. So, yes, Bukele is a great leader. I have no problem with him. I think he's doing great for his country. And I'm happy to see his success and happy to see that he is being a leader, at least conceptually, adopting Bitcoin as legal tender. But it is improper to compare the U.S. and El Salvador. I saw Max Kaiser saying something about, this is El Salvador is the new promised land and the U.S. is going down. I mean, that could not be further from the truth. But let's read some more of what I wrote here. Its loudest promoter of this beef is Max Kaiser. He's a very rich man and fully bought into El Salvador. I don't know what his official title is, but I'm sure he's a close advisor to Bukele, and he is a multi-billionaire for sure. He was buying hand over fist at $1 for Bitcoin. So he's a very rich man. But he struggles particularly in his geopolitical framing. He's always been kind of bad about this. He was behind this like buy silver crash JP Morgan, and that never happened. I think a lot of his deeper ways that he understands the system is anti-America. It's like that is his fallback for everything is just anti-dollar, anti-America, which is okay to not want the U.S. to be an evil hegemon, but if it doesn't help you, if it clouds your judgment, It clouds your way to predict the future. If your ability to predict the future, if you're constantly just anti-America and you don't realize that this is an improper comparison. Okay, if you thought this was a real comparison, El Salvador to the United States, Bukele and Trump are like in the same universe of importance. Uh, you have a bad macro and geopolitical framework. You just do. So I was responding to this. Okay. I applaud Bukele's success. Okay. Back in 2021, I wrote a geopolitical assessment of El Salvador for a Bitcoin magazine, immediately following making Bitcoin legal tender. In it, I concluded that Bitcoin and Bukele will double the GDP per capita in the country over the next decade. So by 2031, they would double the per capita GDP. And that's a great result. That's a great result for your country. Making, the average person twice as wealthy, twice as prosperous in one decade is huge. I thought it was a fairly bold claim, but not many Bitcoiners did. They claimed that I was not bullish enough. Let's check in after 3 years. GDP is up from 29 billion to 34 billion. That's a good move. That's a rise of 17% in 3 years. So we, 30% of the way there, and it's risen 17%. So if, 3 out of 10 years, 30% of the way there, and it's risen 17%. It's behind schedule, but it's a very good start. This trend, however, did not begin under Bukele. Their GDP was generally rising. You see, 2012 through 2019, when Bukele was elected in 2019, December of 2019, I believe. And yes, it's recovered well after COVID, but this trend was already in place prior to Bukele. El Salvador's per capita GDP, on the other hand, has only risen 5%. So 30% of the time frame is gone in my prediction, 3 years out of 10. And per capita GDP has only risen 5%. That's not good. It went up from 4,200 to 4,400. Despite this, we can say that 3 years after my initial piece, my call to double the GDP is still possible, but does not appear to be overly optimistic. People were telling me I was not bullish enough, but it looks like I was too bullish, actually. Where is this? Bukele is the future, or El Salvador is the future. They've only risen their GDP per capita 3 or 5% in 3 years. Okay. That is wonderful. But again, the context is El Salvador is still a very poor country. It remains far below neighbors like Panama and Costa Rica's GDP per capita, but also embarrassingly below Guatemala. Guatemala does not have a Bukele, okay? But they are below Guatemala's per capita GDP and way below Panama and Costa Rica. Even if they did double their per capita GDP, they would still be below Panama and Costa Rica because they're going to grow as well. So, we're talking about a lower mid-tier Central American country. All right. The lowest U.S. state GDP is Vermont at 40.8 billion. The lowest U.S. state is 40.8 billion. The lowest per capita GDP is Mississippi at 39,000. So we're talking 39,000 compared to 4,400. All right. It's not even the same universe. El Salvador is therefore much smaller and poorer than the worst U.S. state. With the size of 8,000 square miles, El Salvador is slightly larger than Massachusetts. I think Massachusetts is like 7,800 square miles, with roughly the same amount of people, 6 to 7 million. That's, for people not in the U.S., Massachusetts is where Boston is, the state that Boston is in. Boston, Massachusetts. And they have a GDP of 691 billion. Same square miles, same population, 691 billion compared to 32 billion. That is massive difference. And the per capita GDP is 87,000. the comparison of El Salvador to the US as a whole is therefore improper. There simply is no comparison to be made. Max Kaiser is wrong. El Salvador's not the future. Okay, he's a good Bukele is a good conceptual leader, and I wish them well. He will do great things for his people. But this comparison, evil U.S. and beautiful El Salvador, is not comparable. Okay, the U.S. is vastly superior in every economic respect. Max Kaiser also tweeted that El Salvador is seeing reverse migration, meaning a positive net migration. However, the data does not agree with that. Net migration from El Salvador is slowly improving. And I link to macrotrends.net that have these migration data here. And in 2023, El Salvador still saw 5 people out of every 1,000 leaving every year, emigrating out. That is not reverse migration. Okay, the US sees 2.7 per 1,000 coming in every year. So see, the El Salvador is negative, the US is positive. This is even after Bukele's reforms. The type of migration also matters. El Salvador is simply not attracting the kind of immigrants we hoped initially. Initially, we hoped El Salvador would see a lot of Bitcoin immigration, tech nomads, or what are they called? Digital nomads that had a relatively high income to come into the country and help spend and all this stuff. But it's simply not doing that. Okay. It is among the 10 worst countries affected by brain drain. Why would so many talented Salvadorans be fleeing? And you can see here, this is from FDI Intelligence. I linked to it down here in the source. But these are the 10 worst countries facing brain drain. Of course, Samoa is way up here. We have Jamaica, Palestine, Micronesia, Somalia, Eritrea, is that how you say it? El Salvador, Albania, Haiti, and Guyana. So you can see El Salvador is also very high on the brain drain stats for worst countries for brain drain. So that means all their doctors and their engineers and all their top earners that are locals, they're leaving. Why would they be leaving if Bukele was doing such a good job? I mean, he is doing a good job, but this is not it's not painted properly. The comparison here is not proper. The U.S. also provides a massive subsidy to El Salvador, Mr. Kaiser, which El Salvador received 8.1 billion in remittances in 2023. So 8 billion out of 32 billion. 25% of their economy is remittances. That's up from 5.7 billion when I wrote my geopolitical analysis in 2021. This still works out to 25% of El Salvador's GDP, with up to 94% of it coming from the United States. Interestingly, the remittance subsidy for El Salvador causes many of their remaining citizens to not work. This was in my initial research. This is the case. These remittances are causing the people that the remittances are going to not work and be lazy. This creates upward pressure on wages, attracting Hondurans and other neighbors into El Salvador, which boosts their migration numbers. So their brain drain is leaving, but they're attracting all of these unskilled laborers from neighboring countries to come in, making their migration numbers look better than they are. They are effectively exchanging top talent for low-income migrants. To conclude, Bukele has done great things, and I'm glad he's gotten the recognition he has. However, it is inappropriate to compare El Salvador to the U.S. in any economic respect. Governing the vastness of the U.S. land, the economy, and people is a completely different thing compared to the relatively homogeneous tiny country. El Salvador is the size of a small U.S. state with a fraction of the economic activity. It is still losing people, with brain drain being a significant problem. The U.S. is responsible for the vast majority of remittances to El Salvador, which total 25% of their GDP, and also lead to wages being marginally higher than they otherwise would be for the rest of the population. Stay humble, stack sats. So that was my reply to Max Kaiser and the Trump Bukele little spat. It is that comparison should not be made. Okay, next story. We're just going through all the stuff I wrote here. This one is a Proton, so I'm not going to go through that because that is for the premium members. You guys can check that out over on bitcoinmarkets.com. Okay, Bitcoin Minute, historical price performance during the Bitcoin conferences. Okay, of course, we know that the Bitcoin Magazine conference is going on right now. Huge speakers, huge deal, getting Bitcoin in the headlines. So I wanted to see how the price has performed during the conferences. All of the buildup and the hype that we hear from this year, we hear every year. Okay, and I wanted to see if we just extrapolate on previous trends, what should we expect? So here we go. In the 2019 conference, that was in San Francisco. And here we go. When I saw this, I couldn't believe it. My jaw dropped. The end, June 26th of 2019, marked the very top of this rally to the day. I couldn't believe it. But it marked the Pico top. And it went down. Of course, we had COVID after that. Absolute Pico top. 2021 conference was in Miami, June 5th, 4th through 5th. But I looked at the 5th. I marked all the last days. And you can see it didn't happen at the top, but it did happen at a kind of a local top and in a general downtrend. So there was no real influence on price from the big conference. And remember, this was a big one. This was the one that Bukele spoke at. I attended it, and Bukele announced that they would be making Bitcoin legal tender. The conference was so big, the stage room was standing room only, and the fire department was kicking people out of the building because it was over capacity. I remember thinking in 2021 that it marked the point where Bitcoin became more than magic internet money. It became a huge deal at that conference. Yet, despite all that, there was no influence on price. Okay, how about the 2022 conference? And this was April in Miami. It happened right before all of these collapses, like what were their names? Jesus. Of course, FTX, but you had Celsius, you had Terra Luna, like BlockFi and these other leverage shops. They all went under, and this happened right before that started going. But it was in a generalized bear market, but you can see it happened right before that really started falling. So this was not bullish at all, this conference in 2022. This was the year of the Bitcoin bull in the Miami Beach Arena Center, or whatever you call it, convention center. Beautiful facility. FTX was everywhere. Shitcoins were everywhere. This was a conference that introduced the Bitcoin bull. So anyways, okay. How about 2023? That was May in Miami last year. Huge Bitcoin 2023 conference took place during the first stages of the current bull market. So this was the FTX crash over here, and the bull market has brought us back up. This was the March banking crisis. Bitcoin rallied, and then in May of 2023, no effect at all on the price, even though there was all the hype going on around the industry. RFK was speaking. Vivek spoke, showing the first glimpses of Bitcoin entering politics, yet no price action. So remember here, 2021, we have Bukele, no price action. Here we have shitcoin hype, no price action. Bitcoin bull. Here we have Vivek and RFK, no price action. So that's the previous years. What will happen this year? Many people are expecting Trump to announce a U.S. Bitcoin reserve. I'm somewhat skeptical of this. It is perhaps the case that he will institute one when he becomes president, but why would he announce it early, allowing so many people to front run? If history repeats itself, we should expect the price to be weak and continue in this consolidation. It is true that today Bitcoin has many more fundamental tailwinds than during previous conferences, so maybe that will result in a different outcome. The ETFs are gobbling up BTC. Trump is promoting mining and holding. Several banks are now able to custody Bitcoin off balance sheet, and billion-dollar companies are adding Bitcoin to their cash reserves. Therefore, a surprise positive announcement from Trump could massively affect price. So here, if history repeats itself, Bitcoin should just continue consolidating. We will see if it is different this time. But as you can see, if you go back and look at everything, the conferences are billed as this large attention event, but really Bitcoin doesn't do much. Bitcoin price doesn't do much during the conferences. Okay, so that was that post. And guys, if you're joining me since started reading that last article, we are on bitcoinandmarkets.com. I write here these short little posts that I put out, try to put out one daily. Of course, I have my weekly newsletter that comes out on Mondays, and I have premium content over here on bitcoinandmarkets.com. I am live streaming on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, and Telegram. If you're watching on Twitter, jump over to the YouTube and Rumble. You can find those links in my pinned tweet, and give me a subscribe, thumbs up. I appreciate everybody for helping me grow the podcast, grow the channels. A couple years back, I got my YouTube channel totally deleted because of something I said politically, and I've been trying to build it back up since then. But anyway, I appreciate everybody that goes over there and subscribes. Let's get into this last one that I put out just this morning, macro minute. So those were Bitcoin minutes. This is a macro minute, and the Fed rate cut odds soar. Bitcoin is ready. Let's take a look at this. So the market has shifted dramatically in the last few days as the 2-year Treasury yield has resumed its downward move. Currently, the market is pricing in a 100% chance of a Fed rate cut at their September meeting. And you can see this coming from the CME FedWatch tool. This adds up to 100%, and that is showing one cut, two cuts, or 50 basis point cut here, and a 75 basis point cut down here. So 100% chance of a cut right now being priced into the September meeting. The Federal Reserve is also meeting next week, which I should be live streaming. That comes out at 2 o'clock on Wednesday, and then the press conference is at 2:30. So check back if you guys are new subscribers and you want to watch the reaction and get the first notice of what the Fed is going to do next week. Join me back here on the live stream. So anyway, here we go. The market only sees a 5% chance that they will cut, but I think it's actually higher than that. I've been thinking it's higher than that for a while. Powell thoroughly understands that their policy is psychological, not mechanical, and that the economy has taken a turn for the worse. He may want to use the surprise of an early cut to help get the market effect he wants. Don't forget, other major central banks have already started cutting: the ECB, Bank of Canada, the Swiss National Bank, and the latest is the PBOC. If they don't cut next week, I expect the verbiage in the statement and at the press conference to turn about as dovish as it gets. Below is the 2-year Treasury yield versus the Fed funds policy rate. As you can see, yields always lead the Fed's cutting cycle. Sorry, I'm just mad at my children for beeping the microwave when I'm live streaming. And it is possible it is a possible breakdown point. So let's look at this. So I'm talking about this breakdown point, where if we draw a line, technical analysis of this 2-year yield right here, there's a possibility that we break lower here, and that would, be breaking the trend line. So we are at a breakdown point. But also, I want you to notice that the Fed funds just follows the 2-year. So the 2-year starts down, then Fed funds is forced to cut. The Fed is forced to cut. Fed 2 years coming down, and all of the maturities are coming down, but I just picked the 2-year for this one. And the 2 years dropping, and the Fed follows it down. And then also here, Powell, this is an interesting one. If I wish I could zoom in on that, but actually we can. Let's go to a live chart and zoom in. And we will go to here. This is what I was working with earlier. We got it here. And we'll do a line. Oh, green line. What the hell? That's gross. Let's fix that. Let's fix that gross green line to a white line. Nice, pretty white line. Okay, so here is the Fed funds. Sorry for all the mouse clicking. I'm using a new mouse because my other one ran out of batteries midstream. Okay, 2019 is what we want to go back to. Zooming in on this one. So these stair steps are when the Fed is hiking, goes up to the next zone. It's a 25 basis point range. So the top here was 2.25 to 2.5. That's where we were back in 2019. Powell came in, I think, right around here, October or so in 2018. And he famously said, oh, we're on autopilot. We're just going to keep going. And then all of a sudden the market turned over and he's like, oh, crap. So then he came off of autopilot like 3 months after he made that statement that they were on autopilot. But anyway, then they're flat here. They keep the rates steady. But the 2 years falling through this range the whole time. And the Powell starts cutting. Now, this is different. This is a different MO than if we go back to Ben Bernanke, GFC. You can see that they held rates higher for longer. Then they cut big. So he cut a big, what would this be? This was from 5.25 down to 4.75. So he cut 50 basis points in the first cut, trying to catch down to where rates were headed. Okay. So this is different than Powell. Same if you go back here to the .com, they're cutting big here, following this very rapidly falling yield of the 2 year. Now, if we go here, you can see this was much more measured. He cut 3 times here in 2019. It looked like things had stabilized, right? Then we hit 2020 and COVID, and they had to rush down. So this is the MO of Powell. We've already gone through a cutting cycle with Powell, and this is what it looks like. Now, if we go back up here to current day, if this breaks down, like I was talking about, this kind of trend line here, if this trend breaks, most likely Powell's going to cut next week. And if it's not next week, it's definitely September. Like I said, the chances are being priced in at 100% now in September. Of course, that can change, but all right, let's go back to the writing. This all adds up to a very bullish scenario for Bitcoin. Of course, we have the conference going on right now and the ETFs continuing to gobble up supply. The halving just occurred and cut supply. And the disappointment over the ETH ETF performance disappointment over the ETH performance post ETF launch could chase bag holders into Bitcoin. I mean, I think this is wishful thinking a little bit, but there's a chance that there's marginal people that come over from shitcoins to Bitcoin because of what's going on with ETH. So, all right. Now I wanted to take a look at comments before we go into the next thing. Dex Invictus is here. What's up, guys? There's 153 people watching, probably most on Twitter. Thank you for joining me, Ansel Winter, Bitcoin and Markets, bitcoinandmarkets.com. Check out YouTube and Rumble. I'm live streaming there. Also live streaming on Telegram. So check all those links in my pinned tweet. You can sign up for the free membership over at bitcoinandmarkets.com. You can also support me. Let me show you one thing that we do for members. Support at the $5 a month. We do this. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I gotta show more. So we do this price forecast competition, and every month you put in a forecast for what the price will be at the end of the monthly candle. And if you are a $5 a month member, and you have a chance at winning $20 in sats, the closest person wins $20 in sats. And we have a winner every month. We also have a Hall of Fame that you can see all the previous winners on here who have won that. So check that out. That's a perk for members over on bitcoinandmarkets.com. All right. Let's see if there's any comments from Telegram. No comments. The Telegram's starting to get some scammers here. Airdrop. Get my shitcoin. Okay, speaking of shitcoins, let's get back into it. Let's go and look at the Ethereum ETF performance. And let's take a look at, actually, go back to this. And we'll take a look at the Ethereum price. I mean, this is nasty, guys. Absolutely nasty. This performance. Oh, what happened to my candles? My candles are supposed to be gray. Okay, so 90 days prior, it's actually just breaking above that point. Let me maximize this for Telegram. It's just making it back above that point. It dropped 12% since the launch of the ETF, but it's making a little bit back today. Following Bitcoin's fundamentals, by the way. But if you go from the 90 days prior mark, it's right around the same thing, where if you see Bitcoin, like I said, Bitcoin is way up, or launched way up where it was 90 days prior. I wanted to take a look at, didn't I write again about that? I did, and I wrote it in here. So I'm actually going to share this part of the premium post. So we're going to go down to ETH ETF damage. My concern about the ETH ETF remains. If it continues to sell off, it could drag Bitcoin with it due to algo bots programmed to arbitrage spreads. If ETH drops, the bots will sell Bitcoin and buy ETH to trade that spread, and vice versa. Because they've been so highly correlated for so long, there are these bots that just trade the spread. This is how ETH remains so closely linked to Bitcoin price movements, and also why Bitcoin's fundamentals dominate Ethereum. This will continue until the arbitrageurs, however you say that word, sell all their Bitcoin to maintain that tight correlation. Some people were taking victory laps on day one, like James Seifert and Eric Balkunis. I don't really have anything against these guys other than they were way too overly optimistic on this ETF thing. They were very bullish prior to launch. At least Eric is admitting the outflows from Grayscale are bigger than he expected. That was my main point I tried to relay to him and others, exacerbated by the lack of staking in the ETFs. Okay, so here's what Eric Balkunis said. This was that first day that they had a positive 100 million. But see, he's saying that it needed it. It needed those big inflows because ETH unlock was also bigger than I thought. Okay. Day two below was much worse. Total ETH outflow is now 108 million. You can see down here, 108 or sorry, 800, well, 108, 811 million out of the Grayscale Trust. And we are seeing negative numbers. So let's go to the current balance here. Where can I find this? I had it pulled up, ready to go. Here it is. Okay, so this is the Bitcoin ETF flows from Farside. They also have ETH flows. And total, okay, guys, this is how bad it is. Negative $179 million so far. Negative flow out of the ETH ETFs. Negative. And I'm going to pull up one of my tweets. I was tweeting about this morning. And it's just a sad state of affairs. Okay, hold on a second. Let me find it. Okay. Bloomberg ETF bros were estimating up to 25% of Bitcoin's ETF flows. I call them way too optimistic. Bitcoin ETFs total flows were never negative. So Bitcoin never had negative flows. It always had positive flows. Let's go back to this ETH or this Farside. And if you go to Bitcoin ETFs, you can get the entire history because they make this shorter. So see, they just show like 30 days or whatever it is. But if you go down here, right here, you can click and get the whole archive. Go back and look at this. So first day for Bitcoin was 655 million, then followed by 200 million. It never went negative. It never went negative after that. That's 900 million. These don't add up to 900 million ever. It never went negative. So this is different for Ethereum. It is different for Ethereum. They are seeing negative, absolute negative flows by a lot. By a lot. I mean, even if there was no ETH outflow right here, it would still take them 2 days, 3 days to get back positive. Okay. This is bad. Very, very bad for Ethereum. Okay, let me go back to this. Did I have any more on this? The ETH chart is ugly. Unlike Bitcoin, its rule change approved and final approval were separated by several weeks. Okay, whatever. That's what we already kind of talked about. All right, so that's it for Ethereum. Let me check any sort of comments here. I'll go back to the main page. Sorry for all the mouse clicks. I had technical difficulties halfway through and had to change it with another mouse, but we are going. 168 people watching. Welcome, guys. Check out bitcoinandmarkets.com. This is where we're going over all this content. And check out my pinned tweet. You can find the links to the YouTube and the Rumble and the Telegram as well. Let me see if there's any comments over on Telegram. No comments over there. All right, so let's do one more thing and look at the Bitcoin chart. That's like the most important thing, right? Price is the only thing that matters. People don't like when I say that, but that is the case. So let's take a look at the Bitcoin chart. Nice big green day for the day. Again, ETH is following Bitcoin. Bitcoin had a big day, and ETH is struggling back. We'll see what the flows are for today. About to break to new highs here, new swing highs. If we can close above this level on my price forecast for premium members, I was talking about this level, and I was also talking about the cloud. So, guys, I'm going to go back to the website and go into this post here again this is the premium member post, and take a look at this. So these two charts right here, I'm looking at the cloud. This is the Ichimoku cloud on extended settings, and these are extended settings from Carpe Noctem on Twitter. Been following him for a long time, and I really liked this cloud alteration that he had, and so I used that as well. But you can see last week on my premium Proton, I was talking about this twist right here, that this could have increased volatility. All right. And then going on to this week, we see that's exactly what happened to the price. Price went right into this twist. And I was expecting for it to maybe possibly go a little bit lower. You can see this arrow kind of has an elbow down here, a little bit lower, bouncing off the key June and the 20-day moving average, and then going higher. But it looks like we didn't get that. Okay, now let's go back to the current chart, and we did not get that. If I bring up the cloud, oh man, got to turn all these things on here. Hold on a second. Okay, so if we turn on the cloud, I was thinking we come down here and touch the key June and then bounce. We did not get there, but so that was a level to watch, as well as this level up here. We tagged that a little bit with the wick, and we can see if we can break out to new highs. Now, the 72,000 new all-time high, 73,000, whatever it is not very far away. 100K is not very far away. If Bitcoin really wants to start moving, it can move very, very quickly. What would that move be to 100K? Somebody can probably do that mental math real quick. It's under 50%. So from here up to 100K, we're looking at 47%. A 47% move is nothing for Bitcoin. That can happen in a blink of an eye. I mean, seriously, it could go up in 1 week's time. We could be halfway there already. There's a lot of liquidity up here from liquidations at the all-time high. We could just rocket right through there. But anyways, okay, let me check the comments, see if there's any. Still no comments. 176 people watching, so welcome. Go over to the YouTube and Rumble, like, comment, subscribe. Trying to grow those channels over there. You can also find me on Telegram, t.me/Bitcoin and Markets. And of course, bitcoinandmarkets.com is the website, which I'll go to going out here. You guys can check out the website. Free stuff over there too. Ways to have memberships as well. All right, well, that's going to be it. I'm going to sign off for today. Thanks for joining me, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.